one voice belonging to we, the people. Today, I want to introduce my latest book title, We Are Revolting, The Inconvenient Truth. Before we talk about the book, I'd like to just fill you in with a little bit about myself. I was born in New Zealand, so I'm a New Zealand citizen, but I'm also a British citizen. So let me tell you a little bit about our parents. My father was born in New Zealand. He is from Irish ancestry. He is a second, third generation New Zealander. My mother, she came out to New Zealand after World War II with her family to start again. While my father was on ration tickets in New Zealand as a child, my mother, along with her younger sister, were evacuated out of Glasgow that was being bombed to Dunblane. And there she was put into an estate with many other children. The estate didn't want the children. They were told to have the children. The children were treated rather appallingly while they were there. My mother's parents were in the medical field, and they were down in Dover helping the troops as they were coming over. My mother-in-law, she was English. She was in London during the Blitz and had her home destroyed. Thankfully, she was out of town that particular night, but she forgot to register with the Home Guard, and they did think she was in the rubble. But she turned up and got told off and obviously survived. My father-in-law was in the British Army. He was orphaned at 14, and he was English as a second language speaker. So he entered the army. He was stationed in Hong Kong, and while there, was captured by the Japanese, taken back to Japan and put into a POW camp there. Allies liberated him. He, along with other soldiers in the POW camp, were liberated by the Allies and went back to their countries of origin. My father-in-law decided to go to New Zealand to start again. And while he was there, he met my mother-in-law, who also ventured to New Zealand to start again. And there they got married, and in fact, they met in Devonport, which is where my husband and I met. So we've always wanted to come back to Britain. Britain has always been in our heart. We were brought up partly British, and in fact, New Zealand, in many regards, is Little Britain, although it is changing now. So that's my background. We've been here back in Britain for 3 years now. I spent a couple of years, many years ago, in Oxford, working there in the laboratory in the John Radcliffe Hospital. It's when I came back over that I noticed lots of things seemed a lot harder. It was fairly hard when I used to live here, but the freedoms and the financial constraints were more emphasized this time round. And with Brexit and with the American elections, and I was starting to see that things were not as organic, were not as controlled by we the people as I had always thought in my fantasy life and cotton wool life back in New Zealand. So I started researching. I wanted to know what was happening. And after 2 years of research, I wrote my book, We Are Revolting, The Inconvenient Truth. I went down many rabbit holes and took some time before, as I went down these rabbit holes, down into the dark recesses, that certain names seemed to be commonly spoken of, certain situations, certain events in history. And it made me open my eyes, and hence the expression, I guess, red-pilled or a truther or whatever. Suddenly I realized that much of what had been taught at school, much of what we hear in the media, were just really a pack of lies. I also realized that the media, or learned that the media and Hollywood were spinning off the same sort of rhetoric. And I was rather horrified to see that they were actually owned by the same people that are very much connected with the United Nations. And the propaganda, if I can use that term, the programming, that the information or half information and really fake news that we were getting were really part of the UN agenda to brainwash us into thinking that we were overpopulated, we were running out of water and natural resources. And once you really start looking into these areas, you realize that there's been a lot of porkies being told. So it made me rather annoyed because, we're all trying to live our one life and we're trying to be good citizens. We're trying to, be our brother's keeper. We're really trying to have a lovely community, a supportive community, but we're being told how we need to be supported. We're being told what we need to view as important. And I realized that we were being hoodwinked with a load of heavy philosophies and ideologies that weren't really true. We were being embattled by thoughts and worldviews that were saddling us with lack of freedoms in our life. And that really annoyed me. Coming from New Zealand, that perhaps is a little less globalized than Britain and America and some of the other bigger Western countries, I realized that America and England particularly are on the front lines. And I really felt that I needed to address that. When you're living in an environment, in a society, in a country, you've been born into it. You don't actually realize the restraints that you're under. But from me coming from this kind of freedom of New Zealand, this number 8 mentality, freedoms that we have and entrepreneurial, we can make it happen know-how that New Zealanders are inherently born into, being pioneers and having to make do with what we had and be inventive. I could really see coming to a more globalized country like the UK that the people here were having it tough. One of the big things that I found I was really sad about was people's health, and particularly people's mental health. So as I went down these rabbit holes, I found out that education had been distorted and edited and obliterated, really. I realized that the health system was set up to keep the people perpetually ill, to keep people chronically on pharmaceuticals for the rest of their life. And that really worried me as well, coming from New Zealand, where I barely knew anyone that was unwell. So my research threw up a lot of problems, threw up a lot of indicators that we are being controlled, and controlled by a very few. We, the people, the masses, are controlled by 1% of the 1% that have got their fingers in the corporations, have got their fingers in the NGOs, the non-governmental organisations, got their fingers all over every government in the world. They're in the EU, they're in the institutions of our countries. And we really are being corrupted from within. It's like this cancer from within our communities and our societies. And I felt I needed to say something, and hence I wrote my book. I really encourage you to get We Are Revolting. It'll give you the big picture view. There's many people that are talking about geoengineering or overpopulation or lack of resources, 5G. There's all sorts of areas that we do need to be rather alarmed, and we need to wake up and learn about. But there is a big picture. There's a big ideology underpinning all these particulars. And my book, We Are Revolting, The Inconvenient Truth, will give you a fabulous broad picture of what is happening, what events have happened historically and are happening today. Are they really just organic? Are they really spontaneous? Or have they been choreographed and planned out meticulously by those that rule through Tavistock and the CIA and the FBI? So I encourage you to buy the book. I wrote the book. I've kept it as cheap as possible to get it into your hands. And as if we, the people, all take up a little bit of the weight of this world, we can turn this table and get this world back. So how can you be proactive? It would be great if you could push the like button. That will encourage me. Share this video with your friends and your family. It's about getting this information out there. That We Are Revolting. It's been written. It's here for you to read. Follow me on social media. I've got some links below. Stop listening to mainstream media. It's all owned by the big corps. You are being told the particular part of the news that they want you to learn, and the fake news and the incidental time-wasting pieces of news. Visit www.antoinettejames.com. I've got free PDFs that go along with We Are Revolting there for you to download. Get We Are Revolting. The link to Amazon is in the description. We need to get this world back. We need to get it back into the hands of we the people. I'll speak next time.